Hello and welcome to today's OpenBrand webinar, What's Cooking in the Kitchen Market. I'm Stacy Hughes and I'll be the moderator for today's event. I have a few housekeeping items that I'd like to cover before we start the webinar. We are recording today's session, so I've muted all participants. Following the webinar, we'll share a link to the recording within the next few business days. You may post questions using the Q&A tool under Activities in the bottom right or in the chat. We will monitor both. We will allow for Q&A at the end of the session. If for some reason we do not get to all the questions today, we will respond via email the next day or so. Now I'd like to introduce our host for today's webinar. First up, we have Jordan Carter, one of our dedicated market analysts specializing in the home appliance industry since 2021. Jordan focuses on market trends, competitor strategies, and industry shifts, providing clients with deep insights to navigate the evolving HA landscape. We're also joined by Valerie Aldi-Heyman, a senior analyst covering our IT categories. Val brings over 12 years of experience and has built a strong reputation for insightful analysis and thought leadership, helping organizations navigate the complexities of the print market. Now I will hand it off to Val to get us started.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Now let me share a little bit more about OpenBrand. OpenBrand was founded in 2023, but has been in the business of consumer durables for over 20 years. OpenBrand combined 4 powerhouse companies, including Gap Intelligence and TrackLine, in order to deliver the most powerful market intelligence available in the industry. Now as one company, we're bringing together the most trusted pricing and promotions, market share, and consumer insights data in the business, delivering market measurement and competitive intelligence solutions that power stronger decisions and strategy for our clients. All right, so everything I just talked about is what our clients have access to and what's fueling the insights that we're sharing today. And the purpose of today's presentation is to provide you with insights into key trends that are actively shaping the kitchen appliance industry, both small and large, and how these insights can help prepare you for what's ahead in 2025. We've packed this webinar with actionable data and takeaways, and here's what we'll cover. First, external influences. We'll take a closer look at the external influences driving change in the home appliance industry and how it's impacting consumer decision-making. We will also explore how these trends will continue to influence consumer behavior moving forward. Next, market trends. This segment of the presentation dives into the new features and trends that are shaping the appliance industry as a result of these external impacts. Third, pricing and promotion shifts. We'll highlight pricing and promotional trends that impact consumer decision-making every day. We'll also examine trends dating back to the pandemic and explore how the home appliance industry has evolved during its recovery. And finally, we'll discuss the topic on everyone's mind, tariff implications and predictions for 2025. Using OpenBrand's Consumer Price Index, we'll explore how pricing is expected to evolve over the coming year and analyze the potential impact tariffs could have on the industry. Jordan will share her insights on what's ahead and how to prepare for the upcoming quarters. We're also pleased to have our Chief Economist, Ralph McLaughlin, joining us today to answer your questions about the OpenBrand CPI and related forecasts. Now, we've got a lot cooking today, so let's dive in by exploring the external factors driving strategic shifts that might be influencing the appliances sitting in your kitchen right now. So first up, let's start big picture. The appliance industry doesn't operate in a vacuum. Broader economic and consumer-driven forces are shaping purchasing decisions and influencing brand strategies across the industry. From rising mortgage rates to shifting home ownership trends, these external factors are setting the stage for how the market will evolve. So let's get cooking. Jordan will now take us through what's driving these changes and how they're impacting the kitchen appliances we use every day.
Unmuting might help. Thank you, Val. Over the past few years, mortgage rates have surged as the Federal Reserve's work to curb inflation. Higher rates have made homeownership less affordable, leading to fewer people buying or moving. Looking back at 2020 and 2021, historically low mortgage rates combined with a rise in remote work fueled a seller's market. Additionally, home purchases and renovations spiked as people adapted to a stay-at-home lifestyle. So what does this have to do with kitchen appliances? Well, large appliance sales closely track with the housing market. Sellers often upgrade appliances to boost home values, while buyers look to replace outdated models. Regardless of market conditions, every home has a refrigerator and an oven. When mortgage rates hit rock bottom in late 2020 and into 2021, appliance demand surged, supply chain constraints limited availability, and with demand at unprecedented levels, major brands pulled back on promotions. Consumers were paying full price with little to no discounts. By mid-2022, as mortgage rates climbed and home sales slowed, appliance demand also started to cool off. With fewer people moving and investing in new homes, the urgency to purchase large appliances declined. As a result, brands returned to more aggressive promotional strategies to attract budget-conscious shoppers. At the same time, inventory levels improved and manufacturers refreshed aging lineups, creating a more competitive market. This shift marked a stark contrast from 2020 and 2021, when high demand and limited supply allowed brands to pull back on discounts. But with inflation squeezing household budgets, consumers have gotten pickier, choosing replacements over upgrades and hunting for deals where they can.
All great points, Jordan. So let's go ahead and review what led consumers to purchase new large appliances. We took a look at our mindshare data, which many of you know is powered by the largest and longest running consumer tracking survey for durable goods in North America. This survey has been active for over 20 years, surveying thousands of consumers every day. And in our survey, we asked questions about several appliance categories such as refrigerators, ranges, dishwashers, laundry machines, cooktops, wall ovens, and over-the-range microwaves. Results showed that replacement was the top reason why home appliances were purchased. And by replacement, we mean replacing an appliance that did not work at all, one that required service, or was expected to break soon. Replacements have historically accounted for between 60 and nearly 65% of new appliance purchases, while moving to a new home, this next highest purchasing factor, sat at around 15%. From 2021 to 2022, aligning with the rising mortgage rates Jordan mentioned in the previous slide, there was a shift in these purchasing trends. New home purchases started to fall, and replacements furthered its lead as the #1 major appliance buying factor, aggressively jumping to about 72% of new appliance purchases. There was also a notable decline in purchases due to wanting a new or additional appliance, suggesting that purchases were driven by necessity rather than desire. It's another sign of tightening wallets. So we've talked a lot about the factors impacting large appliances. Now let's move on to see how these factors play out across small appliances as well.
While the housing market is often a good indicator for large appliances, since home sales usually drive appliance purchases, that's not always the case for small appliances. That's because small appliances have a bigger addressable market, they're compact, portable, and easy to move. Unlike refrigerators and ranges, people often bring their air fryers and blenders from place to place, which means renters and homeowners alike can utilize their small appliances. According to a report from Redfin Real Estate, which leverages U.S. Census data, renter households rose 1.9% year over year in the second quarter of 2024. Additionally, during the same period, renter households increased 3 times faster than homeowner households, and trends have not shifted much since. This aligns with and is driven by the factors that we're seeing. A result of inflated mortgage rates has led to rising housing prices and a rental market that is more affordable for the average U.S. resident. A major downside to renting, though, is less space, which impacts consumers' decisions about small appliances. Limited counter and cabinet space can discourage purchases, leaving consumers hungry for more space to store their appliances. Also, when consumers have less counter space, small appliances end up stored away in cabinets. And when they're out of sight, they're less likely to be used, reducing the likelihood of future purchases.
Thanks, Jordan. These are all great insights into the external factors shaping the industry, from economic shifts to evolving consumer behaviors. But how are brands responding? Let's dig into the latest market trends and see how top brands are adapting, whether through innovation, new features, or competitive positioning. Now, Jordan, I know that these trends are some of your favorites to talk about, so go ahead and take it from here.
Thanks, Val. I do love talking about the new features and innovations that we are seeing getting introduced across the industries. Keeping with the theme of space-saving innovations, we're seeing new designs across the small appliance industry to minimize counter space usage, making it even easier for consumers to say yes to a purchase. This past year, we saw Ninja go vertical with their double stack air fryers rather than positioning the baskets side by side like most competing models. This maintains the ability to cook foods at different temperatures and settings while taking up half the footprint. While attending the Inspired Home Show at the start of this month, we noted a similar design making its way into Gourmia's lineup, with the control panel also stored flat on the side and ready to pop out whenever needed. Further space-saving capabilities were highlighted at the trade show, with Cuisinart showcasing its Space Saver air fryer oven, a similar design to Ninja's Flip toaster oven and air fryer that was first introduced last year. Both designs allow the consumer to flip the appliance up against a wall, providing additional counter space without having to go out of their way to store these appliances in their cabinets. As I mentioned earlier, when an appliance is stored away, it gets less use. That means older models may be tossed without being replaced, leading to fewer product upgrades. Brands want enthusiastic users in categories driven by discretionary spending, especially as shoppers become more price conscious. These space-saving innovations are great, right? But it doesn't address the fact that brands are making more and more appliances for everything. That brings me to the next trend in our space-saving journey, which is going to be multifunctionality. While multifunctionality is not necessarily a new trend, toaster ovens are now coming with air frying functionality. It is a growing factor in the popularity and has spread across the majority of small appliance categories. It's no secret that Shark Ninja's growth strategy incorporates rapid expansion into new categories. We've seen it across both the Shark and the Ninja brands. And this, paired with the popularity of these trendy appliances on social media, results in a lot of individual appliances in consumers' homes that need a place to live. Over the past few years, Ninja has released ice cream makers and even frozen drink makers. The virality of these appliances and also brands using influencers and social media has significantly shaped the small appliance market. But as consumers buy more products to keep up with trends, they're quickly running out of space. Multifunctionality decreases the need to own multiple appliances. This is something we've seen in all categories, including coffee makers that now have K-cup functionality alongside a multi-serving pot, and as mentioned previously, toaster ovens with air fryers. And in the Inspired Home Show, we saw that Gourmia is now introducing a combination frozen drink and ice cream maker, creating a why not both mentality to these luxuries. The expansion of the small appliance industry has been heavily influenced by the ease of use and the do-it-at-home capabilities, which were jump-started by the release of the first air fryer by Philips at IFA 2010 in Berlin. Air fryers offer a faster, healthier, and more energy-efficient alternative to conventional cooking methods. Because of these features, benefits, and popularity, the majority of US households own an air fryer, leading to consumers using an air fryer to cook things that traditionally would have gone in the oven. Now, you can almost always find air fryer instructions alongside conventional cooking instructions on your food's packaging. It's safe to say that we all have an air fry enthusiast in our lives, and personally, I've heard people go as far as to say that they no longer use their ovens since getting an air fryer. Rather, they're using their ovens to store their cookware, which sounds like a creative way to solve the limited space issue, right? Well, similar to trends we touched on a bit earlier, people not using their ovens is not necessarily a good outcome for major appliance brands. Less use means less wear and tear, extending the time between upgrading or replacing. On top of that, when consumers do eventually upgrade, they're less likely to choose premium models, because why would you splurge on something that you don't plan to use often? This has led to the incorporation of air frying capabilities into traditional ovens. This was first introduced into Frigidaire Gallery's portfolio at the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show, or KBIS, in 2019, with the functionality since extending across additional leading brands' lineups. This offers a solution for homeowning consumers that do not want the clutter of additional appliances on their counter, yet again speaking towards the benefits of multifunctionality. The final trend I'll touch on before jumping into some actual numbers is the rise of electric appliances, particularly induction in the kitchen, but also heat pump in the laundry room. Following the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, leading brands in the major appliance industry set their sights on enhancing induction capabilities into their cooktop lineups and heat pump across their laundry portfolios. The IRA offers an $840 rebate for consumers that purchase these appliances as a way to cut back on energy usage. The appeal of these appliances go far beyond the initial rebates, with both heat pump and induction offering significant savings on utility bills in the long run. This government initiative not only removed the barrier to entry for many households in the US to start utilizing this technology, but also offers lasting savings. The Inflation Reduction Act resulted in leading brands shifting product strategies to incorporate this technology to appeal to consumers that are looking to benefit from these savings, especially in a time where the large appliance industry is facing headwinds that are associated with the housing market. As Val mentioned earlier, the majority of appliance purchased are increasingly leaning towards replacements, while other factors, including remodeling, continue to dip. Not only would these savings appeal to shoppers replacing broken or aging appliances, but also consumers that have previously been deterred from renovating their homes due to the cost of appliances playing a large factor. As of this year, funding for the IRA was put on hold due to recent executive orders. However, brands continue to show interest in pursuing electric capabilities, and many brands have even made electrification a core part of their growth strategies. At the end of February, brands like LG's Signature Kitchen Suite, Samsung, and GE Profile showcased induction ranges within their kitchen and bath industry show booths.
All right, so now let's talk about pricing and promotions. And just as a reminder for many of you on the call, OpenBrand has more than 10 years of pricing and promotions data for large appliances and has since released the same capabilities for the small appliance categories as well. And in this next portion of the presentation, Jordan will explore shifts in pricing and promotional strategies across both large and small appliances and what impacted these changes.
Thanks, Val. Let's now jump in to look at quarterly data from the start of 2021 through this current quarter year to date. Looking at 2021, the large appliance industry was heavily impacted by the pandemic, and this resulted in low inventory, whether due to increased demand or supply constraints that resulted in lower production. And due to the high demand, brands didn't even need to promote or advertise their products very much because people were already in need or willing to buy these items. And as we can see, this was reflected in the overall average discount across these large appliances, with savings sitting at 13% off on average throughout 2021. The following year, in 2022, we saw a return to normal promo cadence as inventory levels improved, and as we mentioned earlier, mortgage rates increased, therefore resulting in lower demand for these large appliances. This sets the stage for increased competition as brands fought to capture demand from consumers who were more cautious with their spending. And as you can see from the trend here, while large appliances were heavily impacted by the pandemic, small appliances stayed more stable in terms of discounting due to these being nice-to-have items rather than need-to-have items. Additionally, these small appliances sit at significantly lower price points, making them much more affordable and attainable, leading to less consumer hesitancy. These appliances also align with the treat-yourself mentality that was adopted during the pandemic. Shifting gears from discounting to actual pricing, this slide dives into the average shelf and net price across large appliances. Moving away from open brand lingo, what this means is the blue line will be the average price of appliances before brands or merchants apply instant savings. And that red line will be the average price that the consumer actually paid for the products. What we can see here is that major appliance prices have been continuously rising, whether this is due to enhanced features and capabilities or even inflation. However, if we take a look at the red line, or the net price, we can see that while appliances are increasing in price overall, in the second quarter of 2022, the price consumers paid started to come down. In 2022, aligning with the sudden hike in promotional activity following the pandemic, the average net price diverged from the shelf price, signaling that price increases were starting to be offset by discounting efforts. I'll touch on tariffs a bit more in following slides, but what we expect to see throughout 2025 is a continuation of this trend. With major appliances being a higher margin good, we can potentially expect slight price increases, likely nothing significant, with manufacturers eating the majority of the cost rather than passing it along to consumers. This may result in that blue line, or the shelf price, to continue to inch up gradually, but nothing too drastic. Where we could see the most change may be in the net price, or that red line. As I mentioned throughout this session, consumers are already tightening their wallets and have been since the start of the pandemic. As materials such as lumber and steel take a hit, so will the housing market. And as you've all heard me discuss earlier at length, this will have an effect on the large appliance industry. Other factors playing into this will be the cost of everyday low-margin goods that are expected to face the brunt of the tariffs and further result in tightening wallets. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let me circle back to that net price. All of these price increases that we are expected to see in adjacent markets will further raise the cost of living, continue that trend of replacement-driven appliance purchases, and as a result, increase competition. And with increased competition, we can expect more aggressive promotions to combat the smaller addressable market. However, we will have to wait and see how successful this strategy is in actually driving large ticket item purchases. So let me now take a look at small appliance. As you can see here, the small appliance industry reflects a very different trend in pricing. And this can be attributed to being inherently less reactive to external forces. And due to this, pricing has actually decreased at a steady rate over the past few years. The shelf and the net price reflect continued synchrony, and if you think back 2 slides to discounting, this is due to that consistent discount depth. This decline in price can be attributed to a few factors, including increased competition, design improvements, and enhanced portfolios that aim to grow target markets. Touching on the last point of brands enhancing their portfolios, an example of this would be the small kitchen appliance brand Bella. Last year, Bella released its So Yummy by Bella brand across Target's omnichannel, gaining an end cap placement within the retailer's stores. So Yummy is an entry-level brand that is selling its products for one of the lowest prices on the market of just $25. And to add on to that, the brand has a diverse portfolio ranging from blenders, juicers, air fryers, and more. The launch of the So Yummy brand highlights a strategic move by Bella, with the company looking to expand its reach across price bands. Historically, Bella had its namesake brand targeting the mid-range prices, while it also had its Bella Pro brand with a larger footprint at Best Buy, targeting the more premium-focused consumers. Another factor driving low prices is the rise in personal or single-serving appliances, specifically in the blending category. Over the past few years, we've seen Ninja and NutriBullet, and as well as other brands, further expand their single-serving blending capabilities to portable options, allowing consumers to blend on the go. So to frame this up, the market's average price has continually dropped due to the natural affordability of these form factors, paired with new value-oriented sub-brands and rising competition as e-commerce marketplaces bring more brands to the U.S. market.
Thank you so much for breaking those insights at length, covering everything from the external factors shaping the market to the latest trends in pricing and promotions. We've certainly cooked up a lot of valuable takeaways so far. So let's turn up the heat on a topic that's been simmering in the industry for a while and appears to be wildly popular in our Q&A already, tariffs. This is one of the key ingredients that could impact appliance pricing in 2025, and we're going to dive into what's on the table and what it means for the industry going forward. We took a look at our newly released CPI forecast from OpenBrand economist Ralph McLaughlin, who's here on the call. And the forecast combined AI-driven analytics with our vast pricing data set to provide an unprecedented level of precision and insight into forecasting. When it comes to tariffs, we need to remember, however, that we're in a very fluid situation. And so we revise these monthly and have scenario-based forecasting products as well. In fact, we have a lot of customers who are working hand in hand with us to evaluate same-day changes and to keep a pulse on how the market is changing. So with that, tell us what you're seeing so far in the market, Jordan.
Thanks, Val. The impact of tariffs on the appliance market is expected to be noticeable but temporary. Initially, we anticipate a slight increase in prices as brands adjust. However, over time, multiple factors will contribute to an expected decline. Potential tariff rollbacks could ease cost pressures, while brands continue refining their pricing and sourcing strategies. We're also seeing ongoing efforts to diversify supply chains, which helps mitigate risk and reduce dependency on any single manufacturing region. Despite these adjustments, the most immediate impact will be felt in the large appliance categories, where price fluctuations tend to be more pronounced due to higher production and logistics costs. Speaking of which, large appliances have already experienced notable price shifts due to tariffs. Following the 2018 tariff imposition, many brands responded by bringing manufacturing to the US, leading to higher domestic production costs. The pandemic then drove the largest surge in prices as supply chain disruptions and increased demand created additional cost pressures. Now, as brands evaluate their responses to new tariff developments, we anticipate an initial price uptick in the category. Brands will likely adjust their strategies based on long-term economic conditions, but short-term increases are expected as they adapt. Unlike large kitchen appliances, small kitchen appliance prices are expected to rise more gradually. And I know we mentioned previously that prices were down overall, but that's mostly due to product mix. When we look at pricing on a SKU-to-SKU basis, the price of each SKU has generally increased. Major small appliance brands have not signaled any intent to relocate manufacturing to the US, and it's believed that these brands will instead optimize existing supply chain efficiencies. Despite potential price adjustments, SharkNinja, a key player in the space, maintains a positive financial outlook for 2025, indicating confidence in its ability to navigate market conditions. Overall, while tariffs will play a role in shaping small appliance prices, the category is expected to see a more measured impact compared to large appliances.
Jordan, it sounds like there's a lot at play here. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in a very fluid macroeconomic situation, and we'll be updating our forecasts on a monthly basis. I wanted to note too that beyond our baseline forecasting, we also have scenario-based forecasting, such as percentage-based scenarios. So for example, if those of you on the call think that things will be 25% better or 25% worse, we can absolutely input those what-if situations into our model. And because the market is so volatile and conditions are tumultuous, our customers not only rely on the same-day data, but also actively work with us to forecast. And we've stirred up a lot of insights today, covering everything from shifting consumer behaviors to pricing trends and the latest tariff updates. But what's on the menu for the remaining 3 quarters of 2025? As the market continues to evolve, Jordan will serve up her outlook on these trends, challenges, and opportunities that will shape the year ahead. So let's dig into what's coming next and how brands can prepare for the changing landscape.
Thank you, Val. Among all appliance categories, large appliances are expected to feel the biggest impact this year. With the cost of living continuing to rise and tariffs impacting purchases, many consumers are being more selective about big-ticket purchases, which could then shrink the market for new appliances. On top of that, higher resource costs could push home prices even further, making it more difficult for people to buy or move into new homes. And as we've discussed, home purchases and large appliance sales often go hand in hand. So if fewer people are moving, that could translate to less demand for items like refrigerators, ranges, and dishwashers. At the same time, tariffs on lower margin appliances could create a more competitive environment for brands, forcing them to adjust their pricing strategies. We may see deeper discounts and more aggressive promotions as manufacturers work to capture a share of limited consumer spending. Given all of these pressures, the trend of replacement-driven purchases is expected to remain strong. Consumers will continue to buy new appliances out of necessity rather than desire, making it more important than ever for brands to align their strategies with shifting demand. Now let's shift our focus to small appliances, where the tariff impact plays out a little bit differently. Unlike large appliances where high price points can lead to delayed purchases, small appliance demand is expected to hold steady, even with the potential of gradual price increases. Some price hikes may come from higher costs of parts and labor sourced from tariff-impacted countries. But because small appliances typically have lower price points, consumers tend to be less sensitive to these changes compared to big-ticket items. One category to watch closely is coffee makers, which may see increased demand as consumers try to cut costs. With global coffee prices reportedly up 70% since November, many people are rethinking their daily coffee shop habits. Instead of paying more for their usual cafe order, they may opt to upgrade their home coffee setup. This will drive demand for premium brewers, grinders, and espresso machines. Smaller brands could see slight price increases as they navigate supply chain challenges, while leading brands are likely to respond quickly by diversifying their supply sources to keep costs in check. So while price increases are expected, small appliances may remain a bright spot in the market as consumers look for cost-effective ways to enhance their daily routines. But with that, I'll pass it back over to Stacy.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan and Val. You've covered a lot of ground today, from market trends and pricing shifts to the impact of tariffs, as well as what's ahead for 2025. Thank you to everyone joining today. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat or Q&A if you have not already, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. Are you considering appliances prices will still be highly discounted even with the new tariffs? Maybe that's a question. Yeah, you got that? Okay.
Yes, I can. We think that the prices that it depends on the brand and where these parts are getting sourced from and where these appliances are coming from. But overall, I think that these tariffs are going to impact a lot of the factors that are driving consumer demand or consumers' willingness to make these purchases. So with that and the tightening wallets that we're seeing across consumers, we can expect these consumers to be purchasing large ticket items less often. And as we mentioned in the slides, it's going to be really driven by replacement data. Mm-hmm. And all that really does is combine to make a more competitive landscape. So depending on the brand and the ability to combat this competitive landscape, I think we'll see leading brands specifically heavily promoting their items or their large appliances, and we'll see smaller brands potentially not being able to keep up with those promotional discounts. On top of that, a trend that we really saw take off in the pandemic was, let me go back. A trend that we saw take off in the pandemic, and this is still pretty consistent across appliances, however, it was definitely at an elevated level back then, was the use of bundling tactics. Brands were heavily advertising these bundles and offering these discounts across a wider range of their portfolios to really target those consumers that were looking to replace their items, whether they're broken or about to break. But
in terms of bundling, Jordan, sorry to interrupt, do you mean the buy one, get one kind of bundle? What specifically? Yeah. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. So like the buy one or buy like kitchen appliances. We saw bundles for 4 appliances or including laundry, like a full kitchen suite.
Right. Yeah. And we track all of that. We can see the bundle.
We do track bundles, yes.
We had one other question regarding the appliances specifically. What categories, Jordan, did you include in the appliance average price calculation?
Those would be the large kitchen appliances. So it's going to be dishwashers, ranges, refrigerators, cooktops and wall ovens, and over-the-range microwaves. I think I made it. Yeah. Had to do the math there, make sure. But yes, it was all major kitchen appliances.
Great. Let's see, one other question we have here. What do you think the impact on gas range demand will be since the product falls in the HTS code for derivative steel products? And do you think this may help accelerate growth in induction?
I think that's a great question. Stacy, could you read it back one more time?
Sure. It's a double one. It's a double one. What do you think the impact on gas range demand will be since the product falls in the HTS code for derivative steel products? So I'm guessing that has some tariff impact. I don't know if Ralph, you have any insight that you can add in on that as well.
Yeah, we are.
Sure. Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I'll pass it over to Ralph, but I will say that with steel production and cost expected to go up, that will definitely play an impact on those categories that are using those goods and for their manufacturing. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Ralph now.
And nice to meet you all, and happy to add a little bit of color here on that. I think there's two ways to think about this, probably more ways to think about it, but the two that come to my mind are short run versus sort of long run impacts, especially with respect to tariffs. In the short run, many of these appliances are what I would call lower turnover, especially major appliances. So people don't buy fridges every year; they don't buy ranges every year, and so they turn over relatively slowly. So what is actually being sold today in many instances, may have been on the shelf for a while because they're slower turnover. It's not like toothpaste or deodorant, say in the personal care category, where I'm buying that every other week or every month. So in the short run, a lot of the products that are on the market today, will not have been subject to the tariffs, even if they're currently classified, say, HES and have steel that would be subject to the tariffs. On the long run impact, if we think that tariffs are here to stay and they are, their presence is indefinite, then we would expect there to be some substitution effect. To your point, Beth, that if gas ranges are subject more to tariffs, because of the derivative steel in that, and induction is not, then at some point, at some break-even point, then not break-even, but at some price differential, induction would absolutely start to catch up with gas if it's that less expensive, and the product offers a not an inferior value depending on that differential. But if we expect the impacts to be somewhat transitory, that tariffs may not be here forever, and certainly our baseline model is suggesting, as Jordan showed, that we see price increases maybe through the middle of the year, end of the year, and then they start to come back down because tariffs are transitory, then we might not see that much growth acceleration in induction, because it is, again, transitory. So, the easy economist way out of this question is it depends. And, a lot of that is out of our control or purview, but we are expecting some of this, at least now, to be transitory. But as Valerie alluded to, this is all very fluid situation. What is transitory today, next week could be, more permanent. But just wanted to hope add some color on that front.
Thank you, Ralph. We have another question in here. You mentioned large appliances might see a shrink in the market. Do you have a current estimate of how many basis points would be expected? That might be a Ralph question.
We do. So we do have scenario planning. We do have an estimate of the approximate differential. In other words, we've run our shipment estimates through through both the baseline scenario, which produced some of these pricing estimates, but also through a downside scenario and also an upside scenario. Those estimates are proprietary for a couple of different reasons. One, you actually need to have a subscription to a third-party provider of those shipments. If you have those, then we can give you those estimates. And then, of course, the differential is part of our paid subscription, when it comes to forecasting. So we do have those estimates. It's not something that we could share publicly or even in this. I can tell you that the differential is not zero. So there is an impact. And we do have an estimate of those impacts, but we're not going to, explicitly share those basic points. That's behind our own proprietary paywall. But we do have them. Very happy to share them.
Great, thank you. It looks like we have another question. Let me just make sure I got all these in here real quick. Okay. Okay, this other one is directed toward you, Ralph. So glad we are here today. Do you think tariffs are going to impact new home construction?
Yeah, it's a great question. Much of the lumber that we use to build new homes comes from Canada, and Canadian lumber is subject to tariffs. Now, the way to think about this, again, is on a horizon, and without waxing poetic too much on this. Again, I'm a recovering housing economist, so that question is bringing out my former housing economist days. But the way to think about this is, at the end of the day, the cost of new housing construction, or the way new housing construction occurs, is called residual land value, which is basically a home builder will look at today's home prices and see how much they could sell, say, 100 homes for, and then they back out of it. They deduct all the cost of building those homes, and then what's left over is what they can pay for the land. So if a home builder has not yet started a project and they haven't bought a piece of land yet, what gets left over, or basically, if costs go up, it comes out of the land value. So the developer, the home builder, doesn't end up paying any more for the project. It's just the landowner takes the hit. So in the long run, the actual impact of tariffs are negligible on the actual cost of housing. Who ends up taking the hit is actually the landowner who's looking to sell the land to the developer. Now, that said, there potentially are some short-run impacts that are due to the tariffs, and that is home builders who have bought the land already. They've started the process of building those homes, but maybe they haven't bought the lumber yet, or even the labor. They've already paid for the land, so they can't go and ask the landowner for a refund on the fact that their costs have gone up. And in that case, they really have two options. One is that they can raise the price of the house. The housing market today is as unaffordable as it's ever been, so it could be hard for them to do that. And the second is that they may actually decide to take a hit on their profits. And if they thought they had a 15 to 20% profit margin and their costs go up by 10 or 15%, they may not have much of a choice except to eat it. And in the case where you have a lot of home builders that are eating costs, some may decide to actually not start the project that was already entitled. And so in that case, we would expect some decrease in new home construction at the margins, at least in the short run. In the long run, shouldn't have an impact on cost or activity, but in the short run, yes. And at least that's partially why we are to some degree forecasting a drop in new home sales and new home construction, and that does weigh to some extent on the amount of durables that actually fill new homes, primarily large appliances.
Thanks, Ralph. This one's for you, Jordan. Will these trends have implications on other appliances like maybe laundry or vacuums?
Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, the answer I would say would be yes, is that if we're seeing it in the kitchen, we're going to see it across the home. We're going to see it in vacuums. Back after the first tariff imposition in 2018, we saw brands like iRobot coming out and claiming that they were going to they fought it as long as they could, but then they would have to raise their prices eventually. And I think that's going to be a common story, especially now in the robotic vacuum industry with a lot of these brands coming in internationally. I think we'll start to see that those prices are going to start increasing a little bit more in line with some of those small appliances that I talked about earlier. For laundry in 2018, those tariffs were specific. There were tariffs that were specifically imposed on washing machines, whereas this time around, we're seeing more of just a broad country tariff. So with that, we can probably most likely expect that laundry machines will raise similarly to the way that we're seeing kitchen appliances go up.
Thank you. Here's one more for you, Jordan. How do you think the small appliances industry will respond to major appliances, kind of adding that multifunctional piece of tech into their larger appliances?
Yeah, I would not expect quite as much of a change for the small appliance industry, even though we see brands adding in air frying capabilities into their ranges and ovens. What I did mention earlier was that these are kind of two different target markets. While the large appliances are more so capturing the homeowners, the small appliance market can really, it varies between homeowners and renters. So while maybe we'll see a slight decrease in air fryers as people who are looking to buy more premium ranges that have this multifunctionality, I don't think it's going to be necessarily anything too significant. Okay,
it looks like we have time for one more question, and I'm going to ask Ralph to answer this one for us. It's a little bit of a weighted question. Should I move my manufacturing facilities? I'm guessing this is a result of some of the tariff discussion that we've had today.
Oh man, that's a huge question.
Might require a whole other webinar.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to take the easy economist route out and say, well, it depends. What we would expect to happen with respect to tariffs. Again, if you think tariffs are going to be very persistent, they're going to be around for us for a while, then okay, we can get into answering this question. If you don't think they're going to be around very long, then the answer is no. Just keep them where they are until the solution sort of presents itself, which is they'll go away, and then you can continue on business as usual. But if we assume that they're going to be around, and again, that could be a big assumption, but let's just assume they will. Then a way to think about it is, okay, well, where do I lie on the spectrum of how large and complex my manufacturing production actually is, and how much tied to a particular point in space is it? And let's think about a spectrum, right? Where let's say I make bread on one end of the spectrum, and the other end of the spectrum I make jumbo jet aircraft. If I make bread and someone heavily taxes the bread that I make in my little shop here, well, I could probably pretty easily go down the street or go to the next county or go to the next state and make bread there. And it's okay, it's going to be a pain in the butt that I got to put my baking equipment or whatever, but I could put it in my truck and I could probably go down to the next county or the next state, or even the next country in this instance, and actually make bread and get around it pretty easily. And since bread is probably a fairly low margin product, I'm going to go do that, right? Because it makes sense. But on the other end of the spectrum, let's say I make jumbo jets, and I make them in Seattle, Washington, or I make them in Toulouse, France. I can't just pick up my jumbo jet making facility and go move it over to Germany, or I can't move it to Canada very, very easily. So depending on where you lie in that spectrum, would dictate how much you should be thinking about relocating, assuming that tariffs are going to be here for a long time. For the jumbo jet production facility, the amount of tariffs are going to have to be massive in order for you to economically justify moving that facility. Whereas if you make bread, the tariffs wouldn't have to be very much, or taxes. I mean, tariffs are really just taxes. Taxes wouldn't have to be that much higher in order to justify me, moving my production facility down the road. So again, I'm not going to tell you whether you should or shouldn't, but I'm going to give you that framework for how you think about where, if you make jumbo jets, I'd probably just, cool your jets a little bit, pun intended, and wait for it. If you make bread, make bread where the sun shines, and maybe you start thinking about what it would take to relocate. So there's my it depends answer again.
That was great. Well done. Well, I think we've covered most of the questions that were submitted. So thank you to everybody on the call for joining. Thank you to our hosts and our guest host, Ralph, for answering a lot of great questions. And we'll see you next time. Take care.